A wage can make you a living. Profits will make you a fortune. Is entitlement replacing opportunity? My pride was in going above and beyond. That job taught me more about life than school ever did. What I like about that is everybody starts at zero. And so if there is no floor, guess what? There is no ceiling. That means your earning potential is limitless because there is no ceiling to earning, right? Your pay is based on your actual contribution and your effort. Sure, it's a little uncertain and it may not feel safe, but man, there's high reward. It's uncapped, really, if you're willing to put the work in. Most high performers choose effort over trading time for money. Maybe there's something wrong with me, that I actually have fun winning. Right now, it's the new currency. Because if you aren't contributing, you will be replaced. You don't earn freedom through hours. That's not where it's earned. You earn freedom through impact. What if I told you that the real problem isn't low wages? It's probably more likely low contribution. Or, I guess another way to look at it is, I think throughout history, we've seen that, number one, if effort pays more than time, then why do so many people still choose time? The wealthiest people in the world don't earn a wage. So why do so many people see the answer to the problem as a wage? Jim Rohn, great business philosopher that I love, he has this saying that a wage can make you a living. Profits will make you a fortune. Now, I don't know that I always thought this way because I was probably programmed like everybody else, right, to think differently. But until I became an entrepreneur, that really didn't sink in. So if you're new here, I'm Kyle Stoy. I'm a retired police sergeant, 20 years of law enforcement experience. I was on the SWAT team, did a tour in Afghanistan where I either directly or indirectly was a part of over 100 combat missions. But most recently, in the last decade or so, my wife and I have become entrepreneurs. And in this journey, I've learned a lot. I've failed a lot. And what I do is I talk to people like you that are interested and invested in personal growth and changing their mindset, changing their perspective on how they think using what I call the ReWired experience framework. And that's take a knee, drink water, reshoot your azimuth, and Charlie Mike. Now, again, I know that sounds like probably a bunch of mumbo jumbo, but real simply, all it means is to change your perspective, evaluate your inputs, reconnect with a why and a clear purpose, and then Charlie Mike, which is continue mission. And really, all I'm saying is don't quit. It's that simple. So as we get into this, I'll share with you real quick why I'm talking about this concept. I saw this viral video meme type thing. And what it is, and if you're listening on the audio podcast, you won't have the visual, but when I get this up on YouTube, I'll probably put a visual up for you. That way you can see what I'm talking about. But with this video meme, is it's somebody writing on a board basically saying, at the top of the board it says, if you can't afford to tip, don't go out and eat. And then they continue to walk you through why you should tip 30% and how to mathematically arrive at that, right? Like how to calculate 30%. And this is problematic for a lot of different reasons. I think for me, the main reason is that you're probably hurting the restaurant industry as a whole because there's a lot of people who can't afford to tip 30%. Now, those same people will gladly tip 15, 20%, right? Or tip a little bit, which is still probably more per hour, right, than a lot of people make, even if a lot of times now with restaurants that are maybe paying minimum wage or just a little bit above minimum wage, which a lot do now. A 10% tip means that you're probably, if you're working, and we'll get into that here in a second, right? But if you're working, then you're probably going to make more than what most people will make at a traditional hourly job. And I'm like, I'm trying to understand the real pushback here, right? Like, why would people not want to make more based on their efforts? A little bit of my background before I went into law enforcement, I put myself through college working at a restaurant. And I bussed tables. That was my very first job ever. And waiting tables, being a server, if you will. And the restaurant that I worked for, the wait staff actually would tip the busboys, tip out the busboys, tip out, I say busboys, there were girls too, the busser. And then the kitchen staff, they would usually tip them out. They would tip out the bartender. A lot of people look at this, oh my gosh, you're giving away all your tips. But really, a lot of these servers were making way above minimum wage. You were walking out of there with hundreds of dollars in their pocket, $200-$300 a night in their pocket. And not every time, right? That's depending on business. But then I would notice the ones that did really well were the ones that weren't standing around. They were the ones that would always take the tables, right? And if that's the mindset thing here for me, is there were multiple times when I didn't work that hard, right? As a busser or as a waiter, like it was slow. And I did a lot of standing around, or I rolled silverware or cleaned something. And I'm like, this really isn't even worth minimum wage. I mean, doing that to me was like, the fact that I'm making any money at all doing these minuscule kind of meaningless tasks, that didn't register as unfair to me ever. Because I knew when we got busy, I could take as many tables as I wanted, as long as I did a great job and gave great service. For the most part, I would get good tips. Not everyone follows tip etiquette, and that's okay. That is largely a Western philosophy that I think that's what the meme is standing against, right? Like the idea of getting paid for your contribution, getting paid for your effort, and the actual quality of service that you gave versus just your time for standing around. And I don't know, I guess what I'm asking you here is, what caused us to get there? What caused that? Is it, we're looking at now, we're bringing back manufacturing to our country. And I'm thinking like we just became consumers and haven't been producing really anything for a long time. And I think just being a consumer and not being a producer has affected generation after generation. I don't know. Give me a comment. Do you think that's a part of it? But what's going on here? Because the comments in that meme are what blew me away. Is restaurants should pay a living wage. Where did that idea come from? That an entry-level job that requires zero education, right? Zero experience is supposed to pay you a living wage. Especially in a gig economy where you can work multiple jobs, right? If you really want to make a living wage, you probably should work more or develop your skill set so that your contribution is higher, right? So that your output is higher, so that your actual value in the marketplace is bigger than minimum wage. And I think that's actually the beauty of sales. And whether we realize it or not, the hospitality industry, like the restaurant profession, and I do view it as a profession because I knew a guy that made a living wage in the restaurant business and was crushing it. Now, he lived below his means and he worked like crazy. When it was busy, he took every table. When the hostesses would say that there was no asking Larry if he wanted a table because they knew Larry wanted a table. They would keep Larry's section completely full. And me as a busboy, if I took care of Larry's section so that he could run 4, 5, 6 tables at a time, then he took care of me, right? Because I was contributing to that end goal. And I know this guy made a ton of money. He worked for it, but he made a ton of money by his effort. But what I see now when I go to a restaurant is wait staff in general, they do a lot of standing around when it's slow. You may see them like rolling silverware or whatever. And I know that's not necessarily in their control, right? Like when it's slow and there's nothing they can necessarily do about that. But I don't know. Are they inviting their friends to the restaurant? I don't know. We run a retail oriented business like that. And I'll talk about that a little bit more here in a second, but I really feel like there's something that team members, employees can do, right, to help drive business to the business so that they make money. And they just view that as, well, that's not my responsibility. Have I just gone crazy? Do I see things totally different, right? Is it because I don't want to work for anybody else ever again? Is that why I am where I am? So I guess the question I'm asking is entitlement replacing opportunity? Like I said, there was many times when I was in the restaurant business that I was tipped way above the courtesy minimum, right? And I knew when I didn't work to earn that above the courtesy minimum. And there were some that would tip below that quote unquote courtesy minimum. And I'll be honest, there were times I was like, I really didn't earn it this time. And I was okay with that. What's changed in our mindset to change that perspective? My pride was in going above and beyond. That job taught me more about life than school ever did. So this is what I'm thinking. Like, time-based pay in some way in people's mind, and I think this is a broke way of thinking, I'll preface it by saying that, is safe and predictable. But here's the downside in my mind. It's also capped. Meaning, if it's safe and if it's predictable, there's probably a minimum, i.e. minimum wage, which would be a floor. And anytime there's a floor, there's a ceiling. What I like about the retail space, and especially sales and marketing, as I've gotten into the civilian sector and started, doing this job or this career field, what I like about it is there is no floor because the entry is zero. When you are compensation or performance compensation based, right? So like commissions, overrides, bonuses, things of that nature, regardless of how that comes to you, what I like about that is everybody starts at zero. And so if there is no floor, guess what? There is no ceiling. That means your earning potential is limitless because there is no ceiling to earning, right? That's what I see. I don't know that I always felt that way. I think there was definitely a time where definitely in my government job, right? Like I'm thinking, okay, good solid wage, a pension, right? But man, there's a lot of sacrifice in that. Just like there's sacrifice in being independently employed or as an independent contractor, entrepreneur, self-employed, business owner, which are different categories, but don't have time to go into that completely. But what I'm saying is that if you have effort-based pay, right, your pay is based on your actual contribution and your effort. Sure, it's a little uncertain and it may not feel safe, but man, there's high reward. It's uncapped, really, if you're willing to put the work in. Most high performers choose effort over trading time for money. They choose getting paid for their effort over trading time for money because it builds leverage. That's true leverage. And you have the ability to scale. So if I can duplicate me, if I can teach other people to do what I do, and in some way there's a compensation model that pays me for training competent people, right? Which nowhere will you find that in a traditional sense. You're not going to find that in a wage job necessarily. Think about that. Even if you work, say, at a car lot as an example. I'm a car salesman. I'm a great car salesman. I go out and I get my buddy. They're like, hey, Kyle, go find somebody. We need more salesmen. I go get my buddy. I bring my buddy in, right? And he gets hired at the car lot and he's selling cars like crazy, right? He becomes a top salesman in the whole company, like for the whole manufacturer or whatever. And they're like, hey, Kyle, here's $100 recruiting bonus or whatever. Thanks for bringing on your buddy, John. But John is making that company a ton of money. It seems to me, if there were a way that they could pay me some type of an override or a commission based on what he did, like a bonus or something based on the sales that he did while I was employed there, that would make more sense. That would make more sense because I brought somebody in who's forever going to contribute to the company. And as long as he's there contributing to the company and I'm there contributing to the company, why would the company not continue to pay me for doing that? I think companies, especially in sales, would get way better people if that were the model versus, yeah, we'll pay you a comfortable salary plus a little bit of commission. How about some incentives for bringing in top performers and then training those top performers? That makes sense to me. I think when it comes to the concept or the visual of trading time for money, a great visual is the actual physical time clock, right? Like you punch in, you punch out, you punch in, you punch out. I'm only working when I'm there. I'm doing the minimum to get by. I punch out. I'm not getting paid. I'm totally disengaged. I would rather, for me, it makes more sense for me to be somewhat engaged all the time. I'm always thinking about how to innovate my business. I'm always thinking how to help my team. I'm always thinking there is no clock in and clock out. There is no turning it off, and that's okay with me. I prefer to live that way. And maybe that's the separator, right? Maybe there's something wrong with me, that I actually have fun winning. I don't know. Some people got to turn it on and turn it off. I really don't find that as necessary because my true passion is helping other people win. And our business by nature helps people win. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's a separator here. I don't know. Drop me a comment on that one if you think that's it. But hey, real quick, while I'm on this topic, if you're thinking, man, I think the way this guy thinks, right? Or maybe you don't. Maybe you're like, man, this guy's got an out there way of looking at things. We've got an awesome community that you can join. You can go to rewiredexperience.com. Any of those buttons, those call to action buttons on the website, it's going to take you to our little community. And inside the community, I got mindset stuff, mindset framework that talks about shifting the way you think about this type of thing. It really is, for me, my dream, my passion is change the way that people think about this stuff. And I want them to think about it in a very what's become a non-traditional way. But I really think this is a very traditional way of thinking, right? If you think about how our country was formed, I think this is the way a lot of the founders and the pioneers of Western culture thought. Is there was no comfortable, when did that happen? I think historically, when did that mindset shift happen was probably whenever the Industrial Revolution hit. A lot of factories, a lot of places where they needed not only people to work in those factories, but people to be the bosses of those people in those factories. And then they formed the formal higher education system. And so that system was literally designed to train employees. I don't see that as a productive way of thinking long-term. I think a lot of people, they start out as employees. I did. I think most people probably will. You're going to work for somebody else. But ideally, I think looking back, I could have worked for free that could have taught me skills that nobody else could have taught. And that's called an apprenticeship, right? Or an internship is what it's referred to sometimes. Even now, I think interns prefer to be paid. And that blows my mind. Should I teach you to make more money? Should I teach you to make more money? Should I pay you to teach you to make more money? It doesn't make sense. Like, I would do that for free. And I think this whole concept is why a lot of young workers are totally avoiding performance-based roles. They hate the idea of sales, which I don't like the word sales either, right? It feels icky. I think for me, it's more about storytelling. And if I can tell a good story, if I can offer you a solution to a problem that you have, that's what it is for me. Now, that's why I'm super picky about what I would ever be associated with in terms of selling something or marketing something to someone. I've got to truly believe in it. I have to have my own story and my own testimony with that product or service or whatever it is. But what do you think the role of education and even social media, or maybe even parenting, has played in this mindset? What have we taught our kids in these education systems that are teaching them that comfort rules over opportunity, that safety rules over putting a little extra effort in, right, to contribute as a part of a greater cause, and then being compensated for that based on your actual contribution? I mean, why is it right now that people expect a livable wage for a minimal effort? In our retail establishments, we do have some employees. All of our employees have an opportunity to earn a commission base. We have a minimum checklist, right? If you're getting paid by the hour, there's a minimum checklist that they have to do to, in our mind, earn that pay, right? So they just follow the checklist. It's super simple stuff. Maybe, I don't know, 20 things on there that they got to do in a shift or so. None of them are hard, super easy tasks, right? That you can do pretty mindlessly, right? And then take care of customers. Be nice to our customers, take care of them, meet their needs. And those are really the only expectations we have for an hourly wage, right? We don't expect you to necessarily go above and beyond for the hourly wage. Now, they also get a tip pool. Now, the tip pool is pretty small. My wife works the bulk of the hours, meaning we are mostly owner operated, right? And so because we're mostly owner operated, most of those tips should go to her, but they don't. We take the entire tip pool and we give it to our employees in a percentage based on how many hours they work, right? So they're making more tips than what they would traditionally make if, say, they just took the tips from their shift. Now, they also have the opportunity to sell products for commission. And here's the thing. This is where we're crazy, I guess. Whatever the profit is when they sell a product, not just the day-to-day services. So it's a health and nutrition bar, kind of like a smoothie bar type thing. And if they actually sell products or programs, because we have like weight loss programs, we have muscle gain programs, sports performance, different things. If they actually sell those programs to a client, they keep 100% of the profit. We keep none. The company gives us an override, but for the most part, the bulk of the profit goes to that person that made the sale with the relationship. But here's the thing that blows me away. They won't do it. I would say 90% of the people that we've hired have the option to make an hourly wage, a tip pool, and a commission. The young people that we hire never make a sale. They never make a sale. They make $100 sale. To give you an idea of their margins, they make $100 sale, they would take home $50. And this is just an example, but that is accurate in terms of the number. So, if you can make one sale during your shift, in essence, you could make 40, 50, 60 bucks an hour when you couple that with your tips and everything else, right? But they don't do it. They won't sell. And maybe they don't believe in it. Like I said, maybe you got to have a story with it to go with it, but a lot of them do and they still don't. So what is it? This is an episode where I'm just asking everybody, what is it? What's going on? How do we shift this way of thinking? How do we help the younger generation not to be stuck in this kind of suck? Because it's going to hurt everybody. This entitlement is unbelievable. An employee costs me way more than their wage, way more. Because if they make a mistake, it may cost me product, right? Because they make a mistake, we got to remake it, we throw it away. Employee also can cost me a client base. They can cost me a customer. If they don't give good service because they've got an off day, they've had a bad day, right? You don't get to have a bad day. You got to bring your best every day because now you're running off my customers and that's costing me money on top of paying you to run off my customers. The other thing is that we will offer free training, sales and marketing training so that they can actually build their business. And we offer these trainings for free, although we don't necessarily compensate them for be there. And again, it's because it's optional. It's really so they can make more money and we shouldn't have to pay them to learn how to make more money. I don't understand the mindset behind that. I really want to understand why their expectation would be that we've got to pay them to learn. Maybe this is triggering. I want you guys to fire off at me here in the comments. I truly want to understand why an employer. Now I understand if it's part of the minimum, right? I'm going to train you to make sure that you can do the minimum. But if I'm going to pay you more, I think there's a lot of times where this person maybe needs some leadership training and they're going to advance to a management role. The management role has a certain minimum expectation. We've got hopes that's where they're going to go. Okay, I'll pay to send them to a leadership school or a management school. That makes sense. But what I'm saying is, if it's really just sales and marketing and you're going to get 100% of the profits from that sale, why in the world would I pay you? Because I'm going to make less money paying you for the training and then you making 100% of the profit on that. Right. And that's unique to our business model. We like it. It's more like a business co-op, right? Like we try to have our team members look at us more as mentors and coaches than bosses, right? And we want them to look at us as they are a part of that team and that they have ownership of that business. And we've had I say a lot, there's been a small percentage of employees who do go on to open their own location, right? And they were different. They were different from the get-go. So what is that? That's a small percentage of people. I would say probably 1%, 1 to 2% that went on to do that. What makes them different? What wired them different? And then why are the people that aren't wired like that? Why do they feel like they deserve a piece of everybody else's money? Because I seem to see that too. Like they feel like it should go from that person's bank account to their bank account in some way, shape, or form, whether the government forces them to do it or some other way, right? But the people that think that way, they usually think that in some way they're entitled to somebody else's hard-earned money. So somebody help me understand it. I really want to understand why. Let's look at where we're going right now. If your presence doesn't increase performance, if it doesn't increase output, if you being there doesn't merit the quote unquote hourly wage for your time, why wouldn't an employer, especially in a business that can be largely owner operate, right? Why wouldn't they replace you with something that costs less and performs better, like AI or a robot? Really? Like, I think that's the direction we're going, because you've got these 1% or these 2%ers that I'm talking about that are wired different, and they're not going to give just total unmerited favor over and over again to these people that are costing them money and then just saying, but you got to give me more, but you got to give me more. And I just don't think that's the way life works. So here's the way I look at this, and to tie it up with a neat little bow. This is the way I look at it, right? And I think a lot of people in our community, the people that come into the ReWired experience, this is either where they start or where they end up. But number one, discipline creates freedom, and discipline to work for yourself, right? And not the safety of working for somebody else. There's obvious advantages to working for yourself, but then there's obvious challenges, and that's that you got to show up every day for yourself, right? So are we in a place where so few people can see that? And that effort actually builds leverage. And without this, you can never have scale, meaning that how do I do more? One of the things uniquely that I heard the other day is that the race is no longer to see who the next trillionaire is going to be. Right now, they're saying the race right now is who's going to be the first solopreneur billionaire because of AI. Because AI now, one person can leverage and do the job of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people, right? And so how can now I can scale at 1/10 of what it would have cost me before? So who's the first one person, the first individual that's going to go to $1 billion? That's what wealthy people right now are talking about. Who's going to be the first person to leverage this? Look, contribution right now, it's the new currency. Because if you aren't contributing, you will be replaced. If not by another person, which has always been the case. Right now, you're looking at being replaced by a robot, by an algorithm, right? And so if you're standing around just doing the minimum, you're likely to find yourself without anything to do at all. And I don't know where people go from there. So you got to figure out how you're going to bring value to the marketplace, because your time is really becoming less and less valuable, in the sense that if time is all you have to give, you're just not worth much. And I don't mean that to be personal, right? I'm sure you're a great person, but if time is all you have to offer, you're easily replaced through automation, algorithms, robotics, whatever, right? You don't earn freedom through hours. That's not where it's earned. You earn freedom through impact. All right, let's wrap this up here. I want to hear from you. What's your take on tipping, on effort? And what does it mean to earn a paycheck? Drop a comment, share this with a teammate or a friend. And if you're serious about building real leverage, in life, in business, relationships, whatever. If you're serious about changing the way you think, if you want to rewire your mind, go to rewiredexperience.com. Join us in our community. There's free coursework that walks you through all of this. So not only will you find this kind of content, but you're going to find PDFs, worksheets, all kinds of things to help you shift your way of thinking, to help you look at this in a different way. Because what's coming, we can't stop. The reason that they're downsizing so many things, corporations, the government, it's because more efficiently they can automate. So if all you have is time, please figure out how you can add more value. I want you to be a contributing member of society, of your team, your family. It's time to shift the way you think a little. So that being said, remember, it's all about changing your perspective, changing your inputs, getting positive, healthy inputs, redefining your purpose, connecting to your why, and then just don't quit. Take a knee, drink water, reshoot your azimuth, and Charlie Mike. We'll see you on the next episode.